Testing one. This is a test for the live. Make sure I can hear on YouTube. Testing 1, 2. All right, we're going to go ahead and get started. Those of you who are waiting for the presentation in hand, we'll have those out to you shortly. Those of you online, thank you for your patience, as well as you in here. Thank you for your patience while we got everything set up. Let's open up with a word of prayer. God, we come to you now just thankful and in anticipation for what you are going to do with this body here at Alondra. We ask that our hearts are in the right place as we ask questions, as we dialogue, as we labor to serve in your community, as we labor to serve each other, as we labor to build each other up and encourage one another. Father, help us to be mindful that we do all things in love. Keep love as the focus in the way that we act, in the way that we respond, and in all the things that we do. Thank you for everyone who is available and willing and humble to be open to what you have called for us individually and collectively as a body. Thank you again, and we look forward to everything that you have planned for this congregation. In your son's name, amen. All right, so the servanthood structure, we're just going to go through this, and then we will start with the Q&A. We have some really good questions lined up as well. Go ahead and go to the next slide. So again, this is based upon the Great Commission. Everything that we're doing is motivated through Matthew 28, 19 through 20, which states, "Go therefore and make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Spirit, teaching them to observe all that I have commanded you. And behold, I am with you always to the end of the age." Next one. And so we'll start with the engagement pathway. And again, this is a visualization, a way for us to imagine the process and the way that people come in and out of our lives at Alondra, whether individually or through Alondra. If you look onto the left, the first one all the way over to the left says invitation. The second tier right next to it is experience. Then you see involvement. The middle one, that would be the shortest, is connection, followed by conversion, commitment, community, and then commission. And so what you're looking at is you can kind of see it as a freeway. And so it's a movement from one to the other. So it's basically if someone has no connection with Alondra, no connection with Christ, what would be one of the ways that they are able to connect with Alondra and through that become added to the body and become a disciple? And so you could have it begin with invitation. And what that looks like is, let's say we have the Super Bowl Sunday. And so with that, you, myself, any of us, we're just saying, hey, why don't you come check this out? We're just going to go have, watch the game. And so they just come to the game. They fellowship. It's all fun. Everything is good. In that process, there are individuals who are on, and it's hard to see underneath, the red says evangelizing and edifying. What that means is that in that invitation phase, you have individuals in the evangelistic ministry or edifying who are going to be key in terms of reaching out and connecting to those individuals. So even though they're having fun and clowning like we always do at the Super Bowl, you have people who are actually trying to get to know them and engage with them and move them further along this freeway. And so that would be the movement of, hey, if you enjoyed this, we'd love to have you come out and worship with us on a Sunday. And so now they are fellowshipping and worshiping with us on Sunday. And then let's say they fill out the guest card, and so now you have the guest engagement team. And so now they are working with them, texting them, calling them, and letting them know about service opportunities, which is the third one. And so with the service opportunities, you have veteran stand down. And now they're being invited to take part in the veteran stand down. And now they're getting to know Alondra in different ways. First, it was through the fun and the fellowship, through worship, and then now through the service opportunities. Moving from that would be kinship or small groups. They're going to be called discovery zones. And so in this process, it would be an even smaller level. So you see that the process is also to where you're getting to know people on a large level, and now it's getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And through this process, again, there's engagement. Through this process, there's the discussion in terms of their beliefs, their life, what's going on with them. You're sharing, they're sharing, and you both are growing and connecting, and ideally, hopefully, moving towards faith as well. From that, you see conversion, which is one-on-one studies. And so that's just a process that you can see going from the Super Bowl all the way to a one-on-one fellowship. Now, the reason why I mentioned it being a freeway is because freeways have on-ramps. And the point is that everyone doesn't start necessarily with the invitation on-ramp. Some people may have their first encounter with Christ and their first encounter with Alondra through the service opportunities. Maybe that's the first time that they hear about something, and that is their introduction. And so every meet, every fellowship, every connection does not have to start in this linear process. It's not meant to be seen as a rigid flow that every one of us has to follow. What it's showing is that all of us fit within some part of the engagement pathway. It shows that my gift, my talents, my engagement at some point will intersect with someone. Most often, it intersects on Sunday morning. But if I'm at the service opportunity as well, that's where my gifts, my talents, and my ministry also intersects. And so what you're looking at and what you're thinking about is, okay, when I choose a ministry, I'm understanding that my role fits along this pathway. It's not rigid, it's not sequential, that everything is always going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It's just a way for us to see how all of us fit along the path of making disciples. Next slide. So this is another way of viewing it, but really from a structured organizational way. And so you can see the lead team, which again is comprised of elders and deacons. Then you also see 3 very, very key teams. That's the lead administrative team, the communications team, and the finance team. And these 3 are pivotal and vital in terms of any of the pillars that we're dealing with, whether it's administrative, communicative, or financial. Those teams are going to be involved in terms of reaching out, connecting, and interacting with each of the 5 pillars. Over in the corner, you can see servanthood ministry, and that's headed by Yeshado Lang and Anitra King. And so that's just dealing with church infrastructure, that's dealing with leadership development. And so if you have questions regarding either of those in terms of infrastructure, or if there's a lacking in leadership training and leadership development, you're saying, well, you know, we're lacking in communication, for instance. We're not really getting communication from our leaders. That would be the points of contact to reach out to. Now, for the 5 pillars, the first on the left, you see exalting, and that's myself, Jason Gilmore, and James Riley. And so the primary ministries that fall underneath that, under the worship ministry, are media, the word, baptism, the ministry, and the auditorium. Auditorium being your ushers and just the cleanup and things of that nature. To the right of that is equipping. Now, the equipping is dealt primarily with Ira Long, John Pastor, Cedric Payne. And so that's dealing with, under leadership, the Bible classes for the children, youth, and adults. And so we're also talking about curriculum as well. In the middle is edifying, and that's myself and Jason Gilmore. Edifying has to do with interaction within the body. That's the primary. Now, of course, edifying and encouraging overlap, of course. Sometimes you're edifying, sometimes you're encouraging. But for the sake of understanding and clarity, the differences between edifying and encouraging kind of get into that level. The connections ministry is really focused on small group. So when we're talking about edifying, we're talking about small group in terms of building up spiritually one another. Encouragement is not always spiritual. Encouragement can run a gamut. You can encourage me right now by putting $25 in my pocket. So we know that encouragement is bigger than edifying. Edification is something that really gets into us growing together, me looking at your spiritual growth and pouring into your spiritual life so that it is built. Think of edifice also as a structure. And so when you're looking at someone's spiritual housing, their spiritual structure, how can I pour into them and help them build, grow, and develop spiritually? Encouraging, you have Cedric Payne, Yeshado Lang, and Ira Long, and that gets into shepherding. Now, a few ministries under that: prayer ministry, grief and loss, sick and shut-in, benevolence, and also counseling care. So it does include some spiritual, but it also includes physical, it also includes emotional, and it also includes financial. Lastly is evangelizing. That's with Craig Calloway, Ira Long, and Cedric Payne. And so evangelizing deals with the external, that deals with outreach. It deals with what we're all called to do, which is go and tell and share the good news. So that's ministries such as Building Bridges of Hope, community outreach, our intended work with Kelly Elementary, and also with the apartment ministry. And so now you can kind of see where there are some differences in terms of if you feel like you are one of the individuals who loves to just share the good news. And so you do feel like you are an encourager. You do feel like you edify and build up the body. Those are all things that you're good at, that you enjoy doing, but you seem to have a passion for talking with strangers and just sharing the good news. That's where you could see evangelizing being the pillar that you fall under. But it may be a situation where you love the one-on-one when someone comes into the body and you're just concerned about a new convert. They've just been baptized and you're like, we can't leave them out. We can't just leave them stranded. Like, we got to go and grab and get those and get them converted. But we got to make sure that the ones who are new babes, we got to keep them built up. How are they going to grow? How are they going to develop? That falls more under your edifying. So you can see the differences. Again, they're nuanced, but there is some clarity if you are looking to see kind of where do I need to fall into. Next slide. Oh, and before, I hope everyone has pens. If not, use your phone because we'll just have the Q&A right afterwards. So any questions you have, please go ahead and write those down so that way we can get those addressed. I forgot to tell you guys that. All right, so the leadership team, AKA the lead team. To the top left, Ira Long for elder. To the right of him, John Pastor for elder. To the right of him, Cedric Payne for elder. Top right, Craig Calloway, assistant minister. On the bottom left is myself, Kelvin Krigler. To the right of me is James Riley for deacon. To the right of him, Jason Gilmore for deacon. And to the bottom right, Yeshado Lang for deacon. And again, the roles of worship leader for myself and assistant minister for Craig Calloway remains unchanged. Next slide. right, so here are some breakdowns of the ministries, and I'm just going to read them because they pretty much explain or are self-explanatory. But if you have questions, we can go into great detail for any of these. But all of the slides that you see from this point on will all have this blueprint and format. I'm going to read the section in the middle, which is just a brief overview, and then the bottom four are going to give you who the leaders are, the current ministry needs, the servant qualities needed, and then the servants. All right? So this is the 9 to 5 ministry, an administrative services ministry established to support all areas of ministry of the Alondra family. Its purpose is to assist the office assistant, paid position currently unfilled, with various administrative tasks to ensure the ministry efficiency and effectiveness. Members of this team will help maintain the church calendar, follow up on phone calls, email, online contacts, enter guest information, mail correspondence, enter response cards, sort and distribute mail, make copies, shred, and file, that includes electronic, send electronic announcements, and perform miscellaneous tasks as assigned. Praise God for my eyesight. Just wanted to go ahead and throw that out there. 2020, y'all. Yeah, I'm bragging. Leaders are Angela Durham, who is our interim. Current ministry needs 2 team leaders, administrative servants and various tasks, and then 2 technical servants. So that's dealing with experience with office, tech, or information tech. Now, the qualities you would need: administration, organizational, confidentiality, being reliable, and being teachable. And there are 4 active members currently. All right, next slide. Dollars and Cents Ministry, AKA that's actually AKA is the Dollars and Cents, but this is the finance ministry. It's established to support the leaders of the Alondra family in the area of financial management and accountability. Purpose is to aid the leadership in meeting the challenge of being excellent stewards of the Lord's financial resources. Members of this team are responsible for establishing sound fiscal policies and procedures, support to facilitate the implementation of recommended policies, periodic review of financial processes, making recommendations for improvement, preparing financial reports, contribution statements, annual budget, maintaining general ledger and recording accounts, special projects as requested. Current leaders: Angela Durham, Terry Moore. The ministry needs: data entry, electronic sorting and filing, annual monitoring and reminders. We need technical servants, anyone with accounting or bookkeeping or reporting expertise, financial management and budgeting skills. We definitely need to be on a budget. The qualities needed: tech savvy, dedicated, reliable, administration and organizational qualities as well. There are 4 active members in this team as well. Next slide. All right, so the communication team. This is a team that is new and vital. I'm sure we all agree Alondra struggles with communication. So we need a solid communications team. That would be for internal messaging, for advertisement, and for social media. I will say right now the ad hoc members are myself, Jason, James. I'm just going to add Angela, even though I know she's not saying that she is. And she's looking at me very funny. But they're all ad hoc. So we need for a communications team. Next slide. Each servant for that will need leaders, administrative secretary, financial secretary, and servants. And for this is really going across the board for any of the ministries. ideally, and we know that this is a very incremental process because of bandwidth, because of number of people and personnel. But we're just talking about visionary and what the ideal goal is, that you would have someone in finance for each individual ministry. And then that person in finance would be able to talk directly to the financial team. So that way anyone else on the team who isn't financially savvy does not have to burden themselves with those types of things. They can trust that whoever is handling finance is handling it. So this is, again, incremental, but the goal is to establish lanes where we can all use our gifts. The bottom part, go ahead to the bottom, I just want to make sure. A more detailed structure of the ministry will be determined by the leaders and members of each servant ministry and provided to the lead team. All right, next slide. This is under equipping. So servanthood, leadership development, develops long-range strategies to implement leadership classes, both in person and online, provides support, training, and coaching for small group leaders, evaluates overall strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, includes the finance team, participates in team and church-wide staff meetings, and initiatives, special projects. Right now, the leaders are Yeshado Lang, Anitra King. The needs, evaluation for, to capture on a quarterly basis with the use of the surveys and the interviews with participants to get a baseline at the end of each ministry, identify trainings and budget items with additional equipping. I think that says should say on an annual basis. Qualities, integrity, ability to delegate, communication, self-awareness, and influence. 5 active members currently. Next slide. Guest engagement. This is a ministry, and this is under evangelizing. Ministry established to provide an ongoing system for connecting guests to the Alondra family that leads to correcting them to Christ. Either correcting or directing. Its purpose is to facilitate the follow-up process and to assist with navigating the engagement pathway, next steps. Members are responsible for greeting, following up with guests by text, phone, and email, making guests aware of next steps, and notifying appropriate ministry teams of guest interest and special needs. Current leaders are Gloria Newman, Bertie Irvin, Brenda Payne. The servants needed greeters, callers, and liaisons. Servant quality needed humble, kind, composure, reliable, and dedicated, and there are 5 active members. Next slide. Worship experience, this is under the exalting pillar. Purpose of worship experience is to develop, lead, and maintain an engaging, authentic collective Sunday worship experience for both the Alondra family and guests. Additionally, worship experience seeks to teach, instruct, and encourage a lifestyle of worship that lives beyond the Sunday experience. The current leader is myself. We have needs for 4 additional praise team members, 2 audio assistants, and 1 admin assistant. The admin assistant being just all of the songs that we want to do and is having those up on the screen. Qualities needed: seeking a deeper relationship with God, appreciation for varied expressions of worship, consistency and timely, creative and or administrative for online media efforts, and then vocal. That's not just singing, but also voiceovers, because we always want to use the devotionals in any method that we can with voiceovers. And there are currently 4 active members in the worship experience team. The gathering, or the Sunday morning worship, multimedia. This ministry is to connect members and non-believers to our online worship services on Sunday so that God can be exalted. James Riley is heading this. The needs are servants willing to be trained on how to set up, use, break down, and troubleshoot the different platforms we use for Sunday services. Qualities needed: creative, committed, tech savvy, 4 active members. Production, also under exalting, is to carry the gospel of Jesus Christ to our ever-changing world using tech and media, support the church's vision, programs, and ministries from an informational and promotional aspect. Also to serve as internal communications within the Alondra family and serve as an external extension of the church that speaks to those who are lost. Jason Gilmore currently heads it. The needs are administrative support, qualities needed, diligent servant spirit, social media experience, able to roll with the punches, nice, and creative. There are 3 current members. Children's ministry under equipping, to teach our children God's plan and to disciple them to share God's plan to the world. Our children will leave the kids and family ministry as independent, critical thinkers and enthusiastic biblical learners who are able to develop as well as implement relevant ministry goals and ideas using their spiritual gifts that will impact the generation to follow the Great Commission when they enter youth ministry. Trinika Gilmore heads this. The needs are 4 to 6 teachers minimum, 5 ministry facilitators, ministry workers for small groups, fellowshipping, service opportunities, and I think that's adult. AKFM, Alondra Kids Family Ministry Events and Funding. Qualities needed: love and understanding of children, a desire to teach this age group. And we need servants for this ministry. Youth ministry, to teach our children God's plan, facilitate them in processing and experiencing God's plan in the world they live in, as well as disciple them to share God's plan to the world. Our youth will leave the AYFM, or is it AY or AK? Okay. Alondra Youth Family Ministry Middle School disciples as independent, critical thinkers, and biblical students who are able to develop a spirit-led and functional youth ministry, implementing relevant ministry goals and ideas using their gifts that will impact their generation to follow the Great Commission. Current leaders heading this: Trinika Gilmore, Tamika Lang, and Malika Oatman. They need a youth minister, 4 teachers minimum, 2 ministry facilitators, ministry workers for small groups, fellowships, service opportunities, and for the AYFM events, funding, and curriculum. Qualities needed are similar or the same to the other: love and understanding of children, desire to teach this age group. There are 4 active members. High school, dedicated to the service and equipping of Alondra youth so they can minister to the community at large. PDYM, which stands for Purpose Driven Youth Ministry, exists to teach and equip youth to honor God by serving others, building relationships with fellow believers, and becoming spiritually mature disciples of Christ. James Riley heads this. We have lots of ministry needs. I don't see the service quality needed, but there are 10 active members. Small groups, and it's discovery zones. The purpose of small group ministry is to explore our faith through cultivating relational life and discipleship within a spiritual community. The leaders are myself and my wife, Trinity Krigler. We need 8 facilitators who are reliable, dedicated, open to teach and learn, empathetic, active listeners, hospitable, and kind. And we currently have 4 active members. Next slide. Building bridges of hope under evangelizing. Focus of this ministry is to evangelize through community outreach as we attempt to build and nurture relationships with members of the community by providing physical support, spiritual guidance, and meeting needs of the individual, to empower members of the Alondra family to engage the Compton community and to reach 10% of English speakers and seekers of Christ. Leaders are Mary Jonice, Lorraine Green, Ira Long, and there are 10 active members. Next slide. Apartment ministry focuses to evangelize the unchurched residents of the apartment building at 1317 East Alondra Boulevard, where Alondra has an apartment there, and develop disciples. The leaders are Sister Juanita Moffitt, Cedric Payne, and there are 2 active members. The next group that you'll see are the ministries that are under development. And so these are the ones. Now, this was, we all remember Holy Grounds, and we're bringing this back with development as we are kind of working ourselves back. Place for members and guests to gather and fellowship in a cafe setting. Eventually, we want this to include running, upgrading, and maintaining the kitchen. Urban Decadence will be in charge of running the cafe, the leaders being Leela Osborne and Stephanie Lance. There needs at least 7 people who can rotate duties such as food prep and presentation, setup, breakdown, cleanup, and other duties. What's needed in the qualities are being dependable, teachable, serious about cleanliness, especially with food handling, personable, and organized. There are 2 active members. The auditorium, and this is, again, a composition and comprising of your ushers, kind of setup, and trash if needed. So that one somewhat flows under worship leader, and so if there's more to come under auditorium, then I'll make sure that that gets handled. Right now, that's kind of parceled out through the worship team, but I'll have to look and see what doesn't overlap to see if there's anything that's specific for the auditorium. To the Throne, Triple T Prayer Ministry. This is established to provide continuous prayer over the Alondra family and the guests that are led to us. Its purpose is to create an opportunity for deeper engagement through the identified needs and prayer requests of our guests, and to live out the directive to pray without ceasing by bringing every family endeavor or need to the throne of grace. Members of this team will be responsible for praying for every aspect of our church and its mission. Having a passion for God's mission and praying for others is important to serving well with this team. Our interim leader is Angela Durham. We need 2 leaders and prayer servants. Qualities needed are humble, kind, composure, reliable, and dedicated. Men and Women of Action. The leader here is Stephen Walton, and his needs are seeking help to lead. Now, Men and Women of Action, their primary, if I remember correctly, is that they were ministering to the sick and the shut-in of Alondra. They would go, sing, pray, provide communion if needed, possibly collect contribution, but really just being actionable, seeing that there was a need and a disconnect from some of the Alondra members, some who have not been able to worship in person in a really long time, or some who just have fallen ill and just attending to that need. Kelly Elementary, this is also under evangelizing. This has been an ongoing and an up and down process in terms of really establishing a base, liaisons, relationships, rapport with Kelly Elementary School. Kelly is just a primary and really amazing way for us to connect with the Compton community. We're able to utilize the individuals there by reaching the kids. We're able to connect with their families. We're able to really get the needs of this community. And so we need leaders, servants, people who, again, have connections either administrative, definitely with the love of kids, who are outgoing, who can be creative in terms of the ideas and possible ways for us to really stay connected to Kelly Elementary School. That is it for that. We're going to have our gentlemen to come up to the stage at this time. Go ahead and give them a round of applause as they go in. And then we will begin our Q&A. Oh, wait, let me keep you. All right. Brave souls that they are. Let's go ahead and get right into it.
Kelvin, there was one question regarding the engagement pathway
Okay.
that occurred that was asked to me directly. So,
Okay.
do you want to go with that?
I didn't get that one.
Yeah, somebody asked me directly.
Oh, you want to address it first?
Yeah, if we,
Yeah,
how
absolutely.
do you want to do it? Yeah, so the question was, and Kelvin talked about it, just in terms of the engagement pathway. If you think about a freeway, um, let's take the 105 freeway. It has, probably about 15 different on-ramps to the freeway. And so just in terms of the engagement pathway, people are going to come and connect with Alondra in a lot of various ways. Obviously, invitation was the first, where we're inviting people to either come to a social event, or you might just say to your neighbor, hey, we're having something at church today, will you come and worship with me? So that would obviously, be like the first on-ramp. But, it might be that somebody is doing a one-on-one with a neighbor or somebody who had a question, and they invite a family member, and so that's their first connection. So we just have to understand that people are going to connect with Alondra in a lot of different ways, and it's okay if their first connection is, let's say they come to a veteran stand down that we're doing and they start helping us there. That's their initial connection with Alondra. Our goal has been and will always be, we want to connect them to us, and then through that connection, connect them with God. And so we're looking at all opportunities to connect with individuals. They just don't have to, get on the on-ramp at the beginning. Wherever they get on the on-ramp, we're going to then take that opportunity of connection to then work with them, involve them, build a relationship and rapport with them, to ultimately be able to share the gospel with them and connect them to God, and then train and equip them to go and make more and better disciples.
All right. Now, for those who are online, you can go ahead and submit your questions right directly to the chat. If you have questions here, just please come up whenever the question suits you, so we can go ahead and you can ask your question. If you would like to direct your question because you don't feel like standing up, that's fine. You can text me. My number is 323 702 3806. If you need it again, just raise your hand and do this, and I'll go ahead and repeat that again. You can do that online as well if that's your preference. So I'll just be going through each of the questions, and if you text me, I'll be able to populate your question. All right, so we'll start with these, so that way I don't forget. All right, first question. This is probably going to be directed to everyone. Studying Scripture as a group and community leads to the growth of the church body as a whole. I personally think that the leaders of the church should be involved and engaged in Bible study with the congregation so that you know how we think, we know how you think, and we can all grow together. So the question is, for those who are not involved in our Bible studies on a regular basis, is this something you are considering? If not, why?
Good afternoon, Saints. Hi, my name is Brother L.E.A.D. Pleasure to be before you. It's an honor. And again, a pleasure. Bible study is very important, and it's a crucial part of our development spiritually, culturally, socially, what have you, as we do our Christian walk. A good number of us participate in Bible studies, just maybe at different times. I know we meet regularly on Tuesdays, and the question may be pertaining to some of the other events or opportunities that we have, such as Wednesday night Bible study or like the Sunday dig. But yes, we are all involved in some capacity of one another.
Hello, I'm Jason Gilmore. I would echo a lot of what Yeshedo said. I think that it's a great question. I think it's important. I have, definitely been interested in, teaching Bible classes. I've taught Bible class in the past. For me personally, it can be a logistical thing at times if we're speaking about our Wednesday classes. A lot of us, work Wednesday morning. Wednesday evening, I'm usually helping my kids with homework, things of that nature. So it's not a matter of interest or being opposed to doing it or that it would never happen in the future. But I also believe in, being aware of bandwidth. And so, it's one of those things where and even all of these things that we're talking about here are really about kind of expanding our concept of what worship is, of what quote unquote church is, of what our interactions within the community are. So I've taught Bible studies in the past. I would embrace the challenge of doing that here. So it's not something that I'm like, oh, never. No, I don't want to be a part of Bible study. But I think that, service is service, and a lot of us are spread thin doing the things we're already doing, and we are studying the Bible with ourselves or with others in other capacities, connected to Alondra or not connected to Alondra. So I just think that's, I guess where I come in with that.
This is Ira Long. As a matter of servanthood, I'm a career teacher. I didn't come to Alondra to be an observer. Currently, I'm teaching the Wednesday morning Bible study, and I have participated as a matter of support on the Wednesday evening study. I personally feel like when I come on Wednesday evening, my voice kind of overpowers others, so sometimes it's better for me to be in the background. But I would prefer to have classes going 5 days a week. I think we need to have our small groups activated. There are more than one way to get involved in Bible studies, because this is also, truth be told, a commuter church. As I learned that a lot of our members live outside of Compton, and to be able to, at some point, come back to this building to have some studies may not be something that everyone can do during the week. If you've been on the 405, the 91, any of the freeways that lead into this area, it's a difficult transition for all of you who work. I'm a retiree, so I could make demands on my own time that I cannot make on yours. But for those who are actively engaged, whether it's on Zoom right now for the evening Bible study, I think our leadership has to also be examples of what we call you to do. If we're not studying, then we're not growing as men of God. So again, for us, our Bible classes are going to look a lot different now We can have small groups, individual studies. We can engage. My first ministry was with my children. So when I hear brothers say he's helping his kids, that's a Bible study group. That is a way of engaging. And in terms of engaging our membership, we also want to encourage everyone who can attend regularly to be a part of the studies. But don't make assumptions that your leaders aren't engaging because you don't see them at your particular study. Because we want to be transparent. We are working and studying the Word of God. And as I've challenged my Wednesday morning group to pray for me, because I want to study every day. I want to be a part of ingesting God's Word in a way that it makes me a stronger teacher and a better example for the members who attend here at Alondra.
And I would just say that I would just challenge and encourage everyone. Everybody should be a part of a study. And it doesn't have to be something that's organized. If you have a couple of people who you want to get together with and study, that's a great opportunity. But that's just what I would encourage as we're kind of talking about this idea of study, is for all of us to be in a study with a member of our community.
One additional point out, just so that way, because I know some of the individuals are missing. I know with John Pastor is due to health. With Craig Calloway, he and his family are also down sick, so be in prayer for them. And then James is just upstairs. All right. The next one. Looks like your roles as deacons are in line or organized according to your talents and hobbies. How is what you will be doing with the title of a deacon different from what ministry leaders over different ministries do? The part 2 is how will you serve and meet the needs of the people that don't fit into the category you serve in? So is there a difference in the title of deacon different from your regular or the ministry leaders, to what ministry leaders over different ministries do? So kind of like what would be the difference in terms of the deacons versus your regular ministry leaders?
I'll just jump in and say, not much difference at all. We're called to serve, just like the sermon was given this morning. And I know all of us will continue to function in the same capacity, whether we're deacons, elders, or not. We're all called to serve. And so my role wouldn't change much as a candidate for deacon. I will continue to serve and continue to be available for the congregation. And I like the second half of the question. So how do we get other people involved? Well, that's our task. We have to outreach to one another, spend time together, figure out how we work together in order to get the Great Commission going, not just for Alondra and Compton, but throughout. So, yes.
Adding to that again, one thing I really appreciate about this particular group of brothers that, when we meet on Tuesdays is that none of us are really particularly caught up in position for position's sake. And I say that because I've been a member at other congregations, and I'm sure we all know of people who, just want to be a deacon. They just want to be an elder. And not particularly because they want to serve, but because of this implied power or position or notoriety that they get. And these brothers are just not really on that, and I was actually joking with them one Tuesday. I said, whether I'm a deacon or not, y'all gonna still get these videos. Like, I don't really care, that's what I do, So, and that's really it. I mean, I think, to echo what Yeshedo said, I think it's more of a accountability issue. And when I look at, when it talks about in 1 Timothy and different places where it talks about deacons and elders and requirements, it's not as though now I have to start doing things I wasn't doing. It's more that you were doing them, and because you're doing them, we're going to move you over here now, So it's not like, oh, now I have to live up to this standard. The hope is that I was already living a certain way to where people would even think for me to be in this position. So I think, but it's a great question because in the past we've seen deacons and elders be like, especially deacons, where it's just like, oh, well, any problem that needs to be fixed, just call Deacon Jones and he'll, and it's, and that's fine. But I always shied away from leadership positions exactly for that reason, because I'm very clear about what I'm not good at, and I'm very clear about where I'm more effective. And so what I appreciate here is that we're still saying, hey, if you really do need something, and you have your Shadow's number, or you have my number, or you have, Brother Long's number, call them, right? But I may say, well, actually, the person who's better equipped to help you with that is this sister, and here's her number, And to me, that's just smarter management, And so I think that's really where we're going with this, is that instead of just saying you're a deacon, you're an elder, and you just have to fix everything that comes up, we're saying, okay, we do recognize the need for structural biblical leadership, but we also recognize that God gifted you in a particular way. And so if you're great at this area and you were already doing it and you were already leading people in this area, why are we force feeding you into this thing that you don't even like, that you're not good at, and that, that you don't even want to do? It doesn't make sense. So yes, we will all help, and even the brothers who aren't here today, if you need our help, we'll help. That's not the issue, but I think it's more of a strategic thing so that if you have a question, you know where to go, and you don't have to ask 8 people to figure out, okay, but I just wanted, media stuff. Okay, I'm talking to Brother Riley. I'm talking to Brother Gilmore. Worship stuff. Oh, I'm going to Kelvin. You just know where to go. And the deacon and elder is more of a statement about, the type of men that we are and how we have served and how we want to serve.
Those were great questions, great responses. Thank you, Yoshedo and Jason. One thing you guys just have to understand, we are plowing up ground where we've never been before, right? We've never had elders and deacons, and so one thing I appreciate about this team is our willingness to be humble and to recognize, hey, we have to trust God. So we're starting from somewhere, and what I kind of challenged these brothers to do was to do one thing, because of our lack of capacity to do everything. So it's like, okay, what's the one area right now currently that you want to serve in, and where there is a need for you to serve? And so that's why you will see our brothers, really serving in areas that really suit them, where they are gifted. Our anticipation is that we're not going to remain here, that we are going to grow and we're going to develop other men to serve in other areas and other capacities. But God has placed us here right now in this area, and this is where we're going to start, but this is not where we're going to finish. And so you will see us expanding and growing as we live out the Great Commission. And so, yes, they are going to serve in areas where they are particularly gifted. But what I appreciate, and Jason and Yoshedo talked about this, is there's nobody who says no. If there's an area where we need to do it, it's like, okay, I'll do it. I'll give you an example of this auditorium. Jason said, hey, look, nobody is doing it, so I will take the leadership role to get this auditorium redone and this beautiful, place that we have here. He wasn't particularly gifted in that area, but he was willing to step up and say, yeah, I'll serve there because there's nobody else who's willing to do that. And I'm just highlighting Jason. That's all of us, where we've been willing to step up and step into areas where we are not most comfortable doing. And God's going to continue to lead us in that direction, and he's going to continue to bring other people to grow this ministry. And that's why we're reaching out to you, letting you know, hey, there's areas, and you saw them, there are areas where we need servants to step up and to be servant leaders. And it is our trust that we're going to trust God. He's going to bring us the people in order to do that.
A follow-up to this, James is posting his comments on chat, so I'll let you guys hear what he's saying. Number one, as we ramp up our youth ministry, we normally hold Bible classes during the same time as adult Bible class on Wednesday. I look forward to joining the adult Bible class or open up the youth Bible study at some point. And then just regarding the deacon question mentioned earlier, I look forward to serve people within my ministry area, but outside as well. I'll go ahead and ask the question in the chat right now. I don't recall seeing facilities support. Has that area been addressed? Is it under development?
Right now, in terms of facilities, David Walker, that's his particular role. If where there's any facility issues, he stands and he walks in that area. And I have been in discussions with him about expanding to have other people to help him in that capacity. So if you are particularly interested in that, please see me.
Okay. All right. We were told of the elder deacon candidates in February of 2021. Is there a reason our elder deacon candidates are still candidates? Do they not meet the requirements yet?
Short answer is, do they still not meet the requirements? The answer is everyone meets the quote-unquote requirements. We're just going through a process. Jason and Yoshado mentioned it to you, just in terms of just because we are elder and deacon candidates doesn't mean that we're not serving in the roles that we will be and are serving in. We're still serving. There was a process, and I'll take it upon myself, to like where we are today, just in terms of everybody spelling out their area of interest. We went through an extensive training. We met with Brother Trice, who took us through some leadership training. We then met with Brother Ernie. Well, I'll go all the way back. We went through AGP training, and right as we were in development, COVID hit, and as you know, everything was pretty much shut down within our congregational structure. We went online for several months. I don't even remember anymore. But everything was put on basically halt and hold. And we are just now kind of in the process of coming out of that and redeploying and engaging that. And so in the meantime, we went through training with Brother Trice. We went through training with Brother Ernie Lewis, just in terms of infrastructure and how to build that out. And kind of what you see today and what you've seen at the membership meeting is the culmination of that training, where we're really interested and focused on infrastructure and making sure kind of 3 or 4 things happen. And one of those are, before we do any ministry, we have been challenged, and we've taken the roles of accountability to say, we are not going to start anything unless we have a leader, unless we have a defined structure in terms of what the purpose is, what the connection is to a particular pillar, what the goals and objectives are, who are the team members, and what are their roles and objectives, and how are we going to determine if we're winning? How are we going to keep score? So those are the structures and the development that we're going through with this team. And so you see the word candidate. It doesn't mean that there's a lack of qualifications. We have a end goal. Right now we're going through some studying. We're doing some studying. We're reading some books that we're working towards that we think are going to help us and build us up. But we have set a date. I'm not going to share it right now, where we look to ordain and formally ordain us. But that doesn't mean we then start. We've already started. We've already been doing this. That just is really a date of formalization, but it's not a date of actually starting and finally qualifying. We all qualify. Candidate is just an interim term. Hopefully that answers your question.
And just to add to that, honestly, if any of them, anyone on stage or off stage, if they were waiting for the candidates part to be removed, then they have no business being up there. I think that all of us should be expecting any aspect of leadership to already be forming in that role. The word candidate simply means that it just hasn't been ordained yet, but everyone should be flowing into that role. I should already see empathy from an elder in training. Otherwise, why is he in training? This is just a part to where if you do notice something in this process before ordination, that you get to know them, speak some words, pour into whatever the case may be, but we shouldn't get caught up on semantics. Everyone should be living out their role completely, and if they're not, and they're saying, well, I'm not a deacon yet, they don't need to be a deacon. So if that is something that you notice, or if you've heard that, then it is something that you should bring to the attention of leadership for sure. Because if Jason tell me that, I'm putting him on full blast. Like, what, sir? So we definitely just want to continue moving on and not letting candidate versus not. These are the roles that everyone should be in. I did not wait for the title of worship leader, and that title means nothing. I'm doing what God has called me to do as long as God has called me to do it. Same with Craig being a minister. The titles are simply there for the organizational structure.
If I may, I have been in the role of an expectant father, and that's where I'm going to put this to the congregation. You're about to give birth to men who have chosen to accept the role of leadership, not because we look forward to the role, but because we've already stepped into that role. We want you to know that we, just like an expectant father, are preparing for the birth of a ministry, for us to be fully engaged, and for you right now to fully engage with us. This is the word candidate shouldn't inspire any thoughts that we're not qualified. It just lets you know we expect to be the leaders of this congregation at some point. But it's called upon the minister to set things in order. So as he decides and takes us through our training, the things that he wants us to know so we can all work as a team closer together, I embrace that as something that helps me to understand his mindset, how he wants to pastor and lead this flock, and for me to fall into line with that same train of thought, with that same enthusiasm that he has, and accepting the role of an elder, a pastor, a teacher for this congregation. So the process, the word he used there, the process for us right now is being fully engaged with where our leader, in terms of the one who is biblically commanded to set things in order, where he sees us needing to go, and to develop that in order to feed this flock. Yes, we're already busy, we're already working, but if those things are not to edify and build up this work, then we need to be set in the proper path. So I'm okay with being trained. I've been trained probably about 3 times. But as far as it goes, being prepared for this congregation, this is my first opportunity to become and be brought to your attention as one who wants to serve here. And your needs are much different than the West Adams congregation, than the Cedar Bluff, Alabama congregation, than the Normandy congregation. You are a specific and individually unique body that requires and demands that your leaders be respectful and responsive to your particular needs.
And then one thing to just keep in mind, because we are aware of critiques that have come from just about leadership. We are sensitive to those and responsive. And so one of the things that we do or don't want to do is we don't want to say, okay, this is what we're going to do, and then once again, not continue or not succeed along with that. And so yes, we've done a lot of soul searching just in terms of, us trying to overextend our bandwidth. And what we mean by bandwidth is us doing 10 things instead of one thing great. And the reason why things start and stop is that we've tried to do those 10 or 12 things and really didn't have the correct structure and the correct planning to see that they succeed. And so that's what we're trying not to do once again. So we are willing to take our time with this process and be prayerful. I mean, the thing that we're doing is not, just for our own sake. We're being prayerful, we're listening to the Spirit, and we're asking God for guidance, and this is where He's leading us.
All right, we're going to keep things rolling. I have a question online, and then someone just submitted a text. So, question online: how long do the teachers have to teach before they get a break to attend worship? So, I guess this is a rotations and scheduling question.
Training, right? Training.
Actually, I have Carlina Payne as one of my trainers and helping with the curriculum. And one of the plans is to engage enough people that would like to teach to be able to give them a break. Now, as far as me just saying it'll be a quarterly break or how often, that's a part of actually, first of all, acquiring the number of people that would actually like to teach, and then being able to divide the work up so that people get reasonable breaks and the students get quality classes. The quality classes is of course primary, but if we have teachers who cannot maintain and be a part of the program and development of the program, then that makes it very difficult for us to establish a rotation. So right now, just for transparency, I only have 5 people that have come to me since we started the announcements. And I want people to come willingly. I don't want to go back to the old school stuff of going and laying hands on folks and say, will you teach? I'd rather have people who want to engage and call me or meet up with me and decide this is what I want to commit to. So the more people we have involved, the more opportunities for rotation and the less likely we are to have burnout.
Some time ago, we filled out a survey with regards to a senior ministry. Is this ministry a sub-ministry with a ministry that is mentioned today? We filled out a survey with regards to a senior ministry. Is that ministry a sub-ministry with a ministry mentioned today? Any?
Yeah, I'm not exactly sure
Of this ministry?
of that question.
but I'm sure there may be an opportunity to develop a senior ministry through our Wednesday morning Bible studies, our Sundays Bible studies, or and Wednesday evening as well. It will be up to us and our bandwidth as we work together to roll out the Great Commission.
Can anyone speak to the current status of the deliverables? Is there a reason we have not received any updates or communication?
I will address that one. Thank you. Well, with the deliverables, we are in a different phase of those. As at the beginning of our Alondra Growth Plan meeting, we had several deliverables that were launched, about 6 or 7 in total, and we are benefiting from the results of that with our sanctuary, our various signage, various teams like that still need to be done. But there's a different phase of our growth plan. So as a part of that, one of those things was creating a welcoming environment, creating a great environment for our worship flow experience. And so that's a part of the first phase. The second phase is building those life-changing relationships, and we'll see that in our ministry development with our small groups, with our Bible studies, etc. And then the third and final phase of that commission engine is building a life of surrendered living. And so we see that with our 4D lifestyle. And all those elements are there. We just have to kick them all in gear, and we need your help and your energy, your time, your talents, your treasures to do that. As a part of ministry and as a deacon candidate, one of our first ministries is to our families. So I have to excuse myself. We have a larger family outing that's taking place, but I am available if you need to contact me or ask me questions directly. I am available. I will give you my personal cell phone number, and I'll just say it out loud. It's 562-335-0011. And I'll be glad to address any questions that may be sent to me individually, but I'm sure the guys up here will be capable of answering your questions. So thank you for your time, and have a good day.
Just regarding our deliverables, to talk with them directly, most of the deliverables, save for the ones wall, pretty much progress along. As you know, right in the middle of us doing the deliverables and completing them, COVID hit, and we actually shut down for quite a period of time. As a result of that, the implementation of many of those deliverables went on pause as well. We continue with the sanctuary because we were empty and we could do that work. The worship experience, you see the fruit of worship experience that we've developed and created, not only in person, but actually a pretty dynamic online experience. Most of the signage that we talked about has been completed. Guest engagement is progressing along. The prayer chest has been completed, but the implementation of that has changed because of the dynamics of our closing and then the state of where we are now. And so most of those are completed. However, they are hampered by, our reopening and the COVID conundrum that has put us in. And so we're looking for, what we need to do further and how we can really kind of change and revamp some of those, in particularly the prayer chest, as we are kind of dealing with prayer in a different way. As you can see, we get a text every week just regarding a prayer.
Also wanted to add, it's a great question, and I think that that's also why one of the things that we have talked about is a communication team, and and like Kelvin said, and we all know, that's definitely something we've struggled with here at Alondra, is just getting information out in a timely fashion. Usually it's up to the people who are actually doing the work to have to then communicate what they're doing, and we all know that difficult. So going forward, as you know, as people step up and as we are able to start to actualize these things that we've talked about, you know, hopefully the plan going forward is that the next group of deliverables or whatever that we're involved in, that's an ongoing process, that we will all do a better job. And I say we as a congregation and the people who have stepped into those roles will do a better job of saying, okay, well, we told you we're going to finish this in March, and now it's January, so we want to let you know where we are along the way, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, so I just wanted to add that as well, because it's a good question, because we did put things out there, and some things are obvious, like the sanctuary, and other things, it's like, well, what happened to that? So I think that's a great point, and definitely, you know, hopefully for those who are skilled in that area, you know, you can step forward and help us be able to communicate the entire process, where we are in the process, so that those questions can be answered before they even become questions.
And just one to speak to, didn't address that, was the guest lounge. We did talk about constructing a guest lounge, and we went pretty far just in terms of getting that done. We hired a contractor. We developed plans. We took those plans to the city, and the city basically told us that in order for us to do any construction and develop the lounge as we wanted to, we would have to really basically tear out our bathrooms and reconfigure our lobby so that we would be ADA compliant with our bathrooms. And we thought that that was cost prohibited, just in terms of the amount of cost it would take in order for us to do that. And so we scrapped the plans to develop the lounge as we had originally envisioned. And because right now we are getting guests sporadically, we are kind of going through that process a little differently, but the hope is that once we get fully engaged and fully serving and really start the process and take the challenge of inviting guests, more guests, we will then reform that lounge and do something differently, but still have it live out the function that we had originally envisioned without the construction.
That's going to lead into our next question, but I wanted to add to the communications because that's near and dear to my heart, and I know that's something that we have dropped the ball on too many occasions. I would like to encourage anyone who, if you are in the habit of always asking, hey, what's going on? What happened to that? What's going on with that? Develop a template that can be used across any ministry to give updates. And then maybe that can be something that the communications team that you would be part of can use to text, email, and whatever the case may be. So beyond just asking what's happening with one individual, I'd like you to consider developing a template that can be used to give congregation-wide information and updates on these things. So that way, the next time you or someone else is wondering, hey, what's going on with that, we know that there can be something monthly set in place that we receive via email or text in church or whatever way you think would be the healthiest way. But if you're asking those questions, then communication is important to you. Then please consider being a part of the communications team. We have a bad habit of starting things and then stopping with no explanation why. Which pillar or leader is going to help prevent that?
That's all of our responsibility. We probably talk about that more than anything. We are quite aware of that, and one of the main reasons is a lack of organization, which we are dealing with. That's why the process is moving deliberately and not quickly, because we don't want to continue to live in that. You are correct. whoever stated that, you are
Everybody.
correct.
That was like 900 people. That was like all the
Okay,
questions.
All right.
That was
Well,
Alondra question.
Right. So as you are aware, we are quite aware of that, and we don't want to live that way any longer.
All right, just have a few questions remaining. Hopefully we can get through these quickly and be done. I think it's 2:28. I'm thinking that we may be able to be done and have our sandwiches by 3. If it does seem like this is going to be longer, then we'll probably need to take a break because I'm not trying to just have us sit and sit and sit. So hopefully we should be able to push through. What has been done with the previous gifts assessments Alondra members completed in the past?
We don't know.
Is there a reason we don't know?
I mean, we'll take the responsibility. We did it. It was a good idea, but it was part of that same process. I remember us doing it, but we didn't have an adequate development to follow up with that and really to engage that. I would say it's probably everybody's responsibility because if it was your gift assessment, it was really particular to you, but we didn't have an adequate process to follow up with that.
Okay. This one was kind of similar to the earlier question. What happened with the ministry fair and deliverables from years ago? But you had updated the deliverables. Did all the deliverables get updated? Yeah. Okay. What is the scope of leadership between the lead team, the AGP team, and the ministry leaders?
Ask that question again.
The scope of leadership between the lead team, the AGP team, and the ministry leaders. So just how do those dynamics work? How are they, what's the leadership in terms of the lead team's role versus AGP team's role versus ministry leader's role?
Well, the lead team, which is leadership, edification, accountability, and discipleship, we are, as you see, those are the elders and ministers and deacons, not in any particular order. Everybody who is a part of the lead team is also part of AGP, along with Anitra King, Brenda Payne, Angela Durham, and Terry Moore. AGP really looks out at the complete congregation, and what we're trying to do is implement the Great Commission. And so the AGP is part of, and here's the idea. We're all part of the same body. And what we're all trying to do is live out the mission and vision that God laid out for his church, which is to go and make more and better disciples. And so the lead team is your traditional leadership. AGP is really the organizational and developmental part of really talking about and putting together and using tools in order to organize us so that those ministries can be effective in functioning within the body of Alondra, ultimately with the singular goal to go and make more and better disciples. And so
James also added
it's
to
all
that.
of us working together in order to accomplish that.
James added the spiritual gifts assessment was for personal knowledge, not for the members. So I guess that it was not, from his perspective, intended to be used from a congregational aspect. I don't know if we still have those, but I would say moving forward, that probably needs to be something that we revisit as the organizational structure is forming and now being formed, that having those spiritual gifts assessment in terms of really having a better idea of where each individual fits within ministry would be extremely helpful.
And Kelvin, I wanted to add to it. Basically, when you look at how the Bible delineates, I see the role of eldership as in the role of equipping. Part of my job, and I'm using that as job, part of my job is to equip each one of you, those even that may be online that I can't see, but is equip you to use your giftedness to build this kingdom up. It's not for me to take the job of doing everything. The body has so many talented individuals. It would be a shame that if an elder stepped in and decided he was going to do all the work. It's impossible to fully have an operational body if the whole body is an eye. I think the minister's already given us some great sermons to that. So when you look at the three levels of support and work that's going on, my role as an elder is simply to equip. That means if your giftedness you haven't identified, someone talked about the surveys, is to help you see what your areas of giftedness are. And then secondly, to empower you to be able to use it right here. You don't have to go any further. You don't have to go out and volunteer at some other organization. Your talents and gifts are needed right here. So you are the missing piece of the puzzle. So as you see the men sitting up here, our job is mainly to be able to support a work that you are already gifted to do, and make sure that you're empowered to get it done at the highest and best level. So anything that we seek to do, we ought to seek to give God glory through it. And I can't glorify God when I'm giving him only a piece of my talent. So the difference between the three groups, each of them have a different function in helping this congregation achieve the work of glorifying God through everything that we're capable of doing. I hope that makes sense.
And also, if when you pose a question, whoever answers your question, if you'd like more detail, feel free to reach out to them and connect with them. Before we finish, we will go down the list again and give all of their numbers, and we'll also go ahead and issue that out and make sure that that's available on the website, and then also do that in Text and Church. That way you have access, because I know sometimes, us being pressed for time, you may have follow-up questions. So if the person responded, please follow up with them. I have a quick question, and I can answer this one myself. Can we go back to having Alondra picnics? Yes, we absolutely can. We'd love to do one next year. Lord's willing, if COVID has really shut that down and set us back, that is something that I am very passionate about. When I first started with Alondra, that was my introduction into this church, and it was a lot easier to get to know people and to see how everybody talks trash with dominoes and competitive. So we absolutely want to get back into doing fellowship things, family fellowship things, and including picnics, absolutely. Yeshado wanted to follow up and said, yes, we can. With the infrastructure we are hoping to create, we will be able to do so with the intention to not just have the event, but to bring others to Christ using the engagement pathway. Next question. What happens if no one signs up for a vital ministry such as communication?
We don't have it.
So sign up. This one I just addressed. How do we get in contact with the ministry leaders? They will give their names. We will also have names and email address available on the website, as well as via text in church. This says, what does it mean to be a leader of a pillar? So just, I guess, a little bit more of a breakdown as to what the leadership role of a pillar entails.
Just that we're responsible and accountable.
Just got one. Is there a published budget?
We met last week, and it is in the process of actually doing budget requests and justifications, and then setting a budget. So we are right now in the research part of budget development, just to look at what the past 3 years, I think we're looking back 3 years. Once we get those numbers, we kind of will have a tentative projection and an understanding of where, what each ministry has, what their expenses have been, like a 3-year average. And then we will be reaching out to the various ministries for like budget requests and budget justification. So that's kind of like the ongoing process that's going to happen.
All right, we have 2 questions left, but feel free to keep texting or posting them online. What happened to the training seminar on developing an online presence? Some months back, there was an online seminar or training seminar that was dealing with developing an online presence. Can anyone speak to that? Can anyone speak to that?
I don't personally recall, so.
Okay, we'll have to follow up on that one then. Is there a plan to make the restrooms ADA compliant?
Not right now. We just we don't have the funds to do it right now. We do have restrooms in the youth center that are pretty much ADA compliant, but here in this facility, we do not. And just for clarity, we did meet with a contractor. We were working with a contractor, and the bid that he gave us, just in terms of trying to do that, because we would basically have to rip out our stairway and then build a completely new stairway somewhere in order to expand the bathrooms, or we would have to tear out the nursery, build a new doorway, and try to do it that way. So it was very involved in trying to get that done.
Okay. Okay, I don't see any online. No one has received. And if most people have been sending me, so I'm assuming no one's going to come up and ask. Do we have any other questions before we close this out? And again, the one that I will work to get a response on is the what happened to the training seminar on developing an online presence, because no one actually fielded that one. For all of the other questions, again, whoever was able to respond to that, if you have additional follow-up, that's the person that you should reach out to primarily. So we're going to go down the list of go ahead and giving their information, and then I will provide Yeshado's again, as well as Craig and John's and myself and James, so that way you have all of the information needed, at least for the phone numbers. And then we'll also do this with the website and Text and Church to just give you a quick cheat sheet, I guess, which we actually should have. That would, yeah, I'm surprised we don't have it. But we'll go ahead and just put all the names, numbers, and emails, so that way you always have access to that as well.
Again, my name is Ira Long, spelled I-R-A, and my phone number is 310-913-8255. 9101. I will have a new Alondra Church of Christ email that I'd like for you to use, and I'm learning to use it. It is going to be ilong at gmail, nope, at alondracoc.org. So it's new to me, but I think it's the best way because you don't want to know my regular email. It's
No,
way
you don't.
Too long. It's way too long. So it's ilong, L-O-N-G, at Alondra, or at alondracoc.org. Okay, and I will respond to it because it's going to be linked to my much longer email.
And just for clarity, just regarding all of our emails will be our first initial of our first name and our last name at alondracoc.org. Those will be active. We hope to have them all activated by the first of the year. So if you want to email us, you can use those emails and they will go directly towards, we will get them. For me, my phone number is 323-228-2732. That's my cell number. I usually have it in my pocket. And my email is actually active, so you can email me. It's cpayne@alondracoc.org. Everyone else's will be active by the 1st of January.
Again, my name is Jason Gilmore. My phone number is 818-635-2332. It's 2332. Like Cedric said, my email would be jgilmore@alondracoc.org. However, in solidarity with my brother, since theirs won't be active till the 1st of the year, you don't have to email me till the 1st of the year. My brothers, I gotta be with them. No, I'm
Well played.
I'm kidding. So
Well
yeah,
played.
so 818-635-2332 or jgilmore@alondracoc.org.
Nicely done. Craig Calloway's number is 310-702-5907. If he didn't want me to give it, then he should have been here. And let me do your shadows again. 562-335-0011. And then James, 310-261-8810. And lastly, John Pastor, 323-810-3742. And then mine is 323-702-3806. We're going to close out with one final question that was given, which is, how do we know if someone is functioning in their correct role, just to make sure we're not hindering a ministry? Well, I'll answer some of that, where Jesus said, you know by your fruits. And so if you are not functioning in your correct role, it will be very evident in some ways. For instance, in the role of benevolence, qualities of compassion, qualities of tact, qualities of active listening are prevalent. If you have someone who is not a good listener, that will become very evident very soon. If you have someone who is not benevolent and is selfish and treats God's money like it's their money, that will become very evident very soon. If you have someone who is not tactful or does not have bedside manner, it becomes very evident very soon. So I think the follow-up to that is making sure that leadership and anyone within that ministry is able to bring that in, and developing a structure and a way to communicate that. Because sometimes people may not know that they're functioning correctly or incorrectly in a role. And so I think the follow-up is, how do we develop a way to communicate that and articulate that in a way that best help them realize that just because this isn't a role that they may be best effective in, how to move them in a different place, or are they open to training in terms of, functioning in that role if that really is a role that they want to highlight. So I think it plays off of, number one, the ministry leaders being very observant, being very present in terms of their ministry, so they're able to see and recognize who is rocking in their role and who is not. And then it's also incumbent on the individuals themselves, the ones that are also within that ministry, to be able to notice that and say, this may be something that may need a little bit more of prayer and communication. So definitely by the fruits, but I think it really gets into how do we develop a way to articulate that, and that's something that we're going to have to work on.
I agree with Kelvin, but also by example, I will use the Building Bridges of Hope ministry. We get together, we eat together, we talk together, and we're not thin-skinned. We all accept the critique. I didn't necessarily say criticism, because criticism hurts, but critique. Look at how we work together, how we build together. And I think what each ministry has to build is some level of camaraderie, which leads to open communication. And unless we agree, unless the two, we can't walk together. We have to be able to step into a ministry knowing what that ministry entails. And I will tell you right now, anybody that causes hurt or pain to a ministry, you already know that that's not a ministry you should be involved with. And if you cannot accept that, that's the other thing that you have to look at it individually. If you cannot accept the broken people who may come into your ministry, when we're dealing with our community, everybody that steps up to us is not coming to us like a member of the Alondra family. They're coming to us from the world that they've been living in. And being able to meet them is not a calling that everybody can answer. Because you may get offended by the way they talk, by the way they smell, by how they approach you. And you have to understand they're not trying to offend you. This is who they are. So if each ministry has its own set of characteristics that you need to be a part of it, so once you get into a ministry and you see what it entails, it's okay to bow out. That's not a failure. That's recognizing that each of us have our limitations. I'm not a social worker, but I am social. I'm a person that can talk to folks. And I'm also a person that knows, apparently I don't know when to be quiet, but I really do. So we even have to know when to be quiet and just listen. So the answer to that question is, each of those gifts have to be evaluated as you step into a ministry. So I encourage people to try new things, but as you see it doesn't fit, get out.
And I just want to encourage us and challenge us. Hopefully you've seen from today, we don't mind the critique because that's how we get better. And we are trying to be transparent. We talk about critique every week. Every week we sit down and we critique ourselves. But what I want to challenge us as a family is what happens beyond the critique. And what happens beyond the critique is seeing that, hey, there's an area where help is needed. And if God has given me the vision to see it and to see what's wrong, that might be a calling on me to see where I can help. And so I would just challenge all of us to think of what's the solution beyond the critique. God bless you guys, and thank you guys for being here. And let's continue to trust God, pray to God for insight and direction on where we should go.
All right, we're going to have our, I'm going to go ahead and close this out. Again, we have sandwiches. It is 2:54, so we are right online. Thank you, whether you are online or here, for just being available, for showing up, for listening, because it just shows off top that there is a level of interest in terms of the direction of Alondra, in terms of ministries, in terms of leadership. And regardless of where we are on the spectrum, from pessimistic to optimistic, we all need God's grace to move forward. We all need to rely on each other. We all need to communicate, and we all need to just stick together and trust that the Holy Spirit is going to move this. God is not done with this congregation. There's so much more for us to do collectively and so much more for us to learn individually. So I'm looking forward, and I hope that you are anticipating what God is going to do. Let's go ahead and pray. God, we thank you for just a great dialogue and discussion, to hammer out details, to deal with strengths, to deal with weaknesses and absences and mess-ups and hopes and dreams and everything in between. We thank you for just this Alondra body. We thank you for every member who took it upon themselves to show up, to be a part, to pay attention, and to lean in to your work here at this congregation. It's a lot to be done, and we need every single person. Father, you've called us for individual gifts. You've given us individual strengths. Help us to use this moment to live in the present, not to shrink back, not to fall back, not to hone on anything but what you have called us to do individually. Help us to be open to listen to each other. Help us to be open to hear each other. Help us to be slow in how we speak to each other. Give us grace and love in the way that we respond to this. Give us grace and love in the way that we deal with each other. Help us to always see the bigger picture, to always understand that it's bigger than myself, it's bigger than any one individual, and that it is ultimately all for your glory. So help us to be open and ready to give you the glory in whatever ways you have planned for this congregation. Bless the food as well for those who are going to partake. And again, watch over us and keep us until we meet again. In your Son's name, amen.